Mic is muted. Testing. If you can hear me, put a 1 in the chat.
I travel all over, 5-star my things, fine wine all over, 5-star dining, living my life, living my dream, oh shorty, doing my thing and doing my way, only.
Okay. Got it. I don't know what is going on with the audio, but it seems that y'all can hear me now. So I'm just going to do a double check again. If you can hear me well again, press 2 on in the chat. So peace and blessings. And so I do apologize. So, all right, Zoo. Alrighty. Okay, so we're good now. We good. So I do apologize. So I guess I got to re-say everything that I just said. So in short, welcome to the Mbongi. This is your brother Asarimhotep with the Martin Delaney Center for Egyptology. And of course, we are here today to discuss a working hypothesis that I'm working on, which suggests that the name, the Yoruba deity, Odùduwà, and the place name, Kimet, are possible cognates. And so we'll get all the details of why I'm going with this particular hypothesis in just a moment. But before we do, I want to make sure that I acknowledge each and every one of you who have made yourselves known. So peace and blessings to Obam, who is in the building. Machona Nuno is in the building. Peace and blessings to you. And to Sister Mika One, thank you for joining us. And Aset Netaru Gai is in the building. Chilimbwe is in the building. Peace and blessings to you. Our good brother Zoo221 is in the building. Thank you for joining. And New York is in the building, Brother Robert Rand. And any others who I may have missed, I don't think I did at the moment. And so if I see you later on, I'll try to acknowledge you as well. And so, out here in Philly, it is snowing. And so certain schools have been canceled today. And I am chilling down the street from the job. And so take this opportunity to have a presentation. Otherwise, I'd be at work right now. And so yeah, it's been a minute. So let's just get to it, right? And don't forget to big up and thumb the video just like this. And make sure that you share the video as well. So let's just get started. And Mika says she hasn't seen snow in a while. You can take all this snow that's over here all the way down in Florida. We'll be happy to give it to you. Believe me. So I'm going to share my screen. like this, and boom. Right, so let's do full screen, and we're going to go to the beginning, and so I will just wait a second, and so we are good. All righty. So as I stated earlier, this continues the conversation on the place name Kimet, but this time from a different angle, but within the same tradition. So y'all know that if you have my latest book from 2023, Race and Identity in Ancient Egypt, Volume 1, Towards an Etymology of the Place Name Kimet, one of the strategies in which we utilized in the text was to find cognates of the word Kimet in related languages and to see what that information reveals and models for an interpretation of the word Kimet in the ancient Egyptian language. So I'm currently working on, let me go from there from just a second. So just to let you know, like I've already turned this chapter in, but I'm adding some things and I'm going to resend it, by this weekend. But the title of the text is Osiris in the form of Shekantadiop. What does it mean to be king? And this is going to be a peer-reviewed work on the subject of course, Shekantadiop and Africology as a whole. So this probably won't come into publication until probably 2025. So, but it's this is double spaced, right now. So this is, I'm dealing with the etymology and the origins of the god Osiris. And so within this conversation, doing some linguistic work, I was able to make certain types of connections that started in the 2023 work on the place name Kimet, but it meshes well with the etymology of the name Osiris as well. So I'll try to make that connection, towards the end. So I'm gonna try to get to this. So, with today's topic, we're going to address these particular issues here. So the research question is, could the name of the Yoruba earth goddess Odùduwà be cognate with the place name Kimet of ancient Egypt? What are some historical arguments for the name Odùduwà, and why propose a new etymology for Odùduwà? What are the sound laws governing my proposal, and what are some next steps or conflicts that must be addressed to strengthen the hypothesis, right? So as many of you know, this is a colorful representation of the word, the place name Kimet in the ancient Egyptian language via the hieroglyphic or the Seshmetuneter script. And so this grapheme is the biconsonantal root or consonant sequence KM. This is a phonetic complement, the owl sign, which is M, and then the so-called loaf of bread or a hill, which is T, and then the newt classifier, which we discussed in the 2023 text, which is a stylized crossing of canals, right? And so this signifies a living space where the Nile flood reaches, right? So this is why you see these for place names all along the Nile. And even in some kind of fictional text, you'll see place names with this determinative here or classifier here. So this is the word Kimet written with the various different classifiers for land. This is the irrigated land glyph. This is the Mer Canal, and then of course this is the kind of the juxtaposition of two Mer canals here. And as we show here, these particular signs are interchangeable. And we saw another variant of this with the Sapat glyphs, which is another variant of the of these signs here. And so, you know from our argument in the 2023 text that the word Kim, we're arguing it does not have anything to do with color itself. It has to deal with a root meaning, a KM root meaning to rise and to fill, and then complete and full. And then the word Kimet here, which we summarize as a riparian land, but more specifically, a land with an abundance of grass and water and vegetation. And it's a specific type of land where the river overflows and waters its banks. So this is where the idea of the fill comes in. And so we go into great detail in the text. We won't go over that now. Here are some representations of the word in various different African languages. So in the Nupe language is Kum, which means a watering place. In Sumerian, Kiduru, a damp ground, irrigable land. Chiluba is Musulu, a river, brook, stream, or creek. In the Nupe language, again, just with the changing of the vowels, is Kin, meaning land, earth, ground, or Kan, meaning farm. In Chiluba, Chiankanda, a piece of land or a field or a part of a land being plowed in a day, in other words, farmland. And then in the Wolof language, Kam, meaning water reserve or water reservoir, I should say, still water and backwater. And then Kam with the long A form, dealing with waterway or water land, right? And so all of the details are in the text. And so how do we make the argument that Odùduwà, the god Odùduwà in the Yoruba, that name is cognate with the word Kemet? Well, we're gonna have to do some tests first, right? So the first thing that I want to do in the Egyptian language is to demonstrate that the KM consonant sequence has dialectical variations, right? So when, one of the methods that we use to test our hypotheses in the 2023 text is that if Kemet meant black land, then there should be dialectical variants of that word Kemet in the language that also means black land, just in a different form, which was not able to demonstrate, but was able to demonstrate along those lines in which we identified in the previous slides, right? But this is one of the methods in which we did. So this word here, this root here, Kim, meaning black, dark, Kamum, to be black, to be dark, is cognate with its dialectical variant Zemiri, darkness, and then Kimi, so-called black bull, or Kimet, black cow, Kimiyet, cattle, is cognate with Zemir, wildlife, Samir, wild bull, and Shu, or Shawa, where the M between two vowels becomes W. And so it becomes a word for donkey. And so it's the second dialectical form that gives you a greater sense of what the actual root means. It has to deal with wild, dangerous wildlife, right? And then you have Sakim, to grow old, and then Kim, arise, to mount up. And then you have Sim, oldest, Semestwiti, elder, Semesu, or semes wa, elder, semes, to be old, to become old, right? Kim, to accomplish, to end, to be complete, full, semeru, complete, right? And so we can see that there's a regular correspondences between Egyptian K and Egyptian Z and S in the first consonant position. And then in the second consonant position, it remains M and M, with the exceptions of the allophones of the W, which we'll see more of. So what this demonstrates is that there's two variations of the same words in the language. There's actually more, but this is just to simplify it to kind of help those of you along, right? And so, just like many languages in Africa, because of some historical issues and interactions, there's various different words for the same concept. So like in Yoruba, we had this word bidi bidi, which means jet black. And we had that same word in the Akan, which is simply bidi. And then we have the word Yoruba dudu, and then the Akan tum tum. And based on regular sound correspondences, these all match. But I just want to show you how this Yoruba word, this dudu, the root is simply do. But there's a second consonant that was dropped in Yoruba, which we confirm in the Akan language. And so the reason is really tum tum with an M sound. But when M is in the vicinity of T, the M often turns to N as a result of an assimilation process, right? So that's why it's tum tum instead of tum tum, right? But we can see even the vowels are the same here. And so, but what we understand here is that that's just like how we did in Egyptian itself. So we notice that there's two forms of the same word, right? And so just like in Egyptian, there's Kim, black, dark, and then Chikambi, Zemeri, darkness, and this abstract here, because this is a word for black unto itself, and this is a suffix of abstraction, and then the nisbi, so belonging, that which belongs to the dark, right? So there's two forms, but there's actually at least three forms of the word. So just like how in the Yoruba, the form that we see here is reduced from a consonant vowel consonant form to simply a consonant vowel form. It's the same even in Egyptian. So you have this word kuku or kakawa, meaning darkness. And we find this in the Sumerian language as kuku or kukuku, as a reduplication to be dark. It's in the Sango language the same as well, kukuku, darkness, right? The reduplication happens here in the Yoruba language as dudu, black, dark. And just like in ancient Egyptian, there's doublets in the Yoruba language. So this dudu form comes from okunkun, darkness, horror, okun, dark, which corresponds to Middle Egyptian kim, black, kamim, to be black, kanehwi, darkness, Kimet, darkness, and which is in Sumeria, kana, to be dark, gloomy, and gloom. Right. And if you have the 2023 work, you'll see in Appendix A the correspondences between Egyptian KM consonant sequence and KN. Right. So we're going to do the same exercise just to prove this point here in between Egyptian and in Yoruba. So just like in Egyptian, as we showed with this first slide here, right? There's two forms of the same word. In the Yoruba language, it is the same thing. So we're not going to deal just yet with the K sound. We're going to deal with the K becoming sh or s in the language. So this is what we see here. So we have Kim, dark, black, dark, Kamim, to be dark, to be black, and then Zemiri, darkness, and then we have a Yoruba, Dudu, black, dark, Adu, one who is very black, jet black, and this is an agent prefix here. But there's also Shu, to be dark, to darken in Yoruba, and that again goes to, it corresponds with Akan, Sum, to be dark. So notice that in Akan, there's the second consonant here is M, as in Mary, just like what we see here. And then because this M is in the vicinity of T, it's the T turns it into M, right? It's into N, as in Nancy, right? So this is what we see here. And then Kimi, black bull, black cow, black cattle, wildlife, wild bull, donkey. And then in Yoruba, it confirms what we said earlier, that this root has to deal with wildlife, dangerous, large wildlife. And so it's Eda, creature, Edi, buffalo, Edu, a kind of wild goat, which in Yoruba B is Eshin, meaning a horse. And then of course, in Egyptian is Simsim, Simset, meaning horse here. Then we have Kim, to pay, to total up, and hold on for the noise a bit, but it means to pay, to total up, to credit, profit, and you can go. And so in Egyptian, remember that M turns into W in between two vowels. So Isu, meaning payment, equivalent. And then it's so we can tell that there's a bit of fronting here. There's a front vowel here. So it's shu, shawat, shawayet, trade, shawayeti, a trader or a merchant. And then M and B interchange. So it's shabu, remuneration, payment, repayment. These are all variants of the same word here, which of course goes to Yoruba, ida, payment of taxes, idana, dowry, san, to pay, to reward, sowo, to trade, right? And Kim, to accomplish, to be complete, to end, full, Sumeru, complete, and go back, Odidi, whole, complete unit, and then She, fulfill, accomplish. So we're seeing these different variations. So the fact that in both Egyptian and in Yoruba, we see two sets of the same word, this only means, and we see it also in the Akan, we go into more detail in the book, but showing the Akan variants. But this shows you that in the Akan language, in the Yoruba language, and the ancient Egyptian language, they inherited both forms, two or more forms of the same word from the proto-language. And this is one of those exercises that you can demonstrate the non-accidental relationship between these particular African languages, because it would be virtually impossible for all three of these languages to have these same and consistent varieties of the same roots in these languages without them actually being inherited from the proto-language itself. And this exercise here, this is the same thing. I won't go through all of these. You can pause and view this on your own. If you have the book, it's in the book. So you got to treat this like a class. So, make sure you read the book, class. And, we are good to go here. So the word Kimet, we're just going to skip down to the bottom here because we've already established the sound meaning correspondences in the previous ones. But I equate this word Kimet here, Egypt country, to Zemiret. There's another word, Zemir, that actually more goes with Kimet here in terms of meaning of a place, a type of land. But what I want to bring out here is that the word for land And the word for ground is the same word for the word for bed, for the word for throne, land register. These are all different variations here. And so we go here with Yoruba, it's Odun, the lower one, the land, the earth. And then, of course, the second consonant is missing. So we have this with vowel harmony here, idi, buttocks, root, base, reason, which also becomes in a second variation, ite, throne, usao, market, stall, ujao, public market. And this is actually a borrowing from Hausa, this last word here. But so there's a semantic correlation here between the ground, a throne, outside a public market, which we'll get into later, land registers and the like, and even country. And so we have to set up these sound correspondences, because these is going to be what's very important later on. And this slide here is just to show you that the same thing happens even in the Sumerian language, which, you know, we did a lot of comparisons in the 2023 text, Race and Identity in Ancient Egypt. And this here is to show, like, in the Sumerian language, the doublets of the words in the short form and in the long form. So what we're seeing here is either the second consonant is a suffix, or the second consonant was lost on a consonant vowel original root. And so just like in, you know, what we saw earlier, this duda, tune, throne, platform for a deity, dur, buttocks, rump, defile, cleft, root, bottom, stand, right? And then this variant here, which it can go with Kimet as well, because Kimet has to deal with land. And the words for land, as I said, have to deal with a secondary meaning, having to deal with to support, to prop up, right? To hold, to ground, to stabilize, to establish, to dwell, right? And so these are variations. I won't get into this. This is just more proof of the association with water. So now I just want to get to the Odùduwà hypothesis. So we have the first proposal here from Dr. Modupe Oduyoye, who we've had on the program before. And he is a linguist out of Nigeria who got his PhD at Yale University. And he wrote a text, Words and Meaning in the Yoruba Religion, Linguistic Connections in Yoruba, Ancient Egyptian, and Semitic. And he makes the argument that the name Odùduwà comes from Odu O Da Ua, meaning oracular utterances creating existence. Now, I have a problem with this on two grounds. The first one is this right here. So he rightfully understands that, you know, if you have this da, meaning to create, and it, you know, because Yoruba words, Yoruba names are actually just mini sentences, right? So when you have like these two vowels together, one of them is going to drop, and the A is going to drop, and then it's going to, so this is why we have duwa, you know, Odùduwà. But what happens is the vowel that is dropped, whatever tone it has, it moves on to the vowel here. So that's why you don't see a tone, like a low tone mark on the duwa here, because this vowel is dropped, but its tone is moved over to the U, right? And so, but it is supposed to happen here. So if you have Odu O with a high tone, it is supposed to be Odo but it's not Odudua, right? So that's the first issue. The second issue is when you're dealing with Odudua in the mythology, and I'm going to have to do a separate show on Odudua itself within Yoruba mythology. There's nothing in the mythology that establishes Odudua create, because sometimes it's a god, other times it's a goddess, but regardless, this deity does not create the earth from the spoken word, right? Like, it's not an oracle, it's not something that was consulted or something to this nature. It's not speech that created the earth, so it doesn't even match the role of Odudua in Yoruba mythology. And so although I have cited in the past this argumentation from Dr. Oduyoye, I'm skeptical of this, like I'm skeptical of the other ones that we're going to deal with right now as well. So, this is my Oluo, Ma Keru, the late Dr. Afalabi A. Opega, from Ode Remo. And so I'm initiated into E5 through this lineage. And, this was the Babalawo from Nigeria that came here to the United States, aka H-Town, and started the process for a lot of us in this area to understand the wisdom of E5 through the Yoruba language and culture. And so he was a PhD in chemistry, right? So he was a prolific author as well. And so this is one of his texts, Ifa, the Ancient Wisdom. And he made the argument that Odudua is the spirit of Black character. So remember that dudu that we saw earlier, meaning Black. So he sees the word dudu, meaning Black, in the word Odudua, right? And so, but just like Oduyoye, he sees character. So you can say for existence and character, you can say Uwa, and I think that's the Ijebu way of pronouncing it. And most other people pronounce the word character as Iwa, as in like Iwa Pele or Iwa Pele, right? Gentle character. And so this is his hypothesis that he put forth in this text here. That is Odudua, the spirit of Black character, which he doesn't explain why it would be Black in terms of character. Like, how do they even relate? And then you have the late Samuel Johnson, who wrote the book, The History of the Yorubas, from the earliest times to the beginning of the British Protectorate. And he makes the argument that the word Odudua means, it comes from a phrase Odu, T-O, da, Uwa, which literally translate as the great repository which brings forth existence, right? So, but we have to understand, okay, well, where does the T come in and where does the O come in the word Odudua? And why isn't there an active variant or popular rendering of the name as Odutio da Iwa, right? And so this, we have these three differing, and there's other ones that people have proposed as well. And it just goes to show that they don't know what the meaning is, because the name is Yoruba, my argument is. However, it's not of a popular, or it may not be Yoruba. It may be from a Yoruboid language, a related language. That when Odudua, the king, came in, they kind of mixed some things up because they didn't put it in this kind of phraseology here, right? So what I want to confirm for you all is that Odùduwà is in fact a goddess, right? And so, this isn't the actual magazine cover for this particular issue, but in the 1984-85 issue of this magazine here in Nigeria magazine, and it's very hard to find these things as well. So I'm lucky being here in Philadelphia. So if you go to the Penn Museum, they have the Nigeria magazines kind of put into one book, and in several books ultimately, but they put several magazines into one book, and you can go and review. So it has some very, very good articles. It's a hidden gem. I'm giving y'all some jewels if y'all here in Philly. You want to get some insight into Yoruba culture in history, or not necessarily Yoruba, just all of Nigeria, right? But especially Yoruba. So in this text here by Mrs. Titi Uba, the Oni, or the king of Ifes are crown and the concept of the divine head, right? She just reaffirms in this text that Odùduwà is an earth deity. And so I'm not sure I want to read all of this, but I have it highlighted here. So Apega, so remember, she's talking about Dr. Apega. This is Dr. Apega here. So I guess I will, because I'm going to have to read it. It provides context. So it seems that the ancient Ife and other Yoruba have acknowledged the presence of vital force in nature by worshiping numerous divinities, sky, earth, and nature spirits, whom they address with specific names. To a certain extent, the influence of foreign religions propagated the existence of only one God, might be responsible for the misconception of Orun as referring only to the sky, and of Olorun, owner of heaven, who is a sky god, whereas it would be more accurate to agree with Apega that the Yoruba regard God as two or three deities in one. Apega's assertion that the name Olodumare is another name for Odùduwà, the earth principle, accords with Verger's own observation that Ashe is identified more with the earth than with the sky. The truth is that to the patrilineal groups who live by the land, earth is literally closer to the people, though it is conceded that the sky father is senior to the earth mother by reason of his masculinity. So just to reinforce here that Odùduwà is another name for Olodumare, right? And so this is a possible, so the source where I got this from, wasn't sure if this was an actual representation. They believe that it is of Odùduwà. It's going to be very hard to find images of Odùduwà or kind of artwork in the feminine form of Odùduwà as an earth goddess. But she is more popular as an earth goddess, but her more plastic or sculptural representations is of the male form. So there's a male and female form of Odùduwà, and but so this is just one possible representation. So, but what I want to add here is that Odùduwà is the earth, and so the Yoruba view the creation as a kind of a calabash that is divided into two halves. So the top portion is the heavens, the sky, so to speak, and is ruled by Obatala. And so for the Naga Yorubas more specifically, the pantheon is Sky Father, Obatala, and Odun, the earth. And then for other Yoruba, it is Obatala and the earth, but it's not Odun, it is Odùduwà. And what I'm proposing is that this Odùduwà is really Odun Uwa, or Odun Iwa. And that just like in the other representations where the second consonant is dropped and the root is reduplicated, that's why it's Odudu. And this is why Odùduwà is an earth goddess. And so I'm going to show how this Uwa or Iwa is equivalent to the feminine T in the ancient Egyptian language, right? And it's because of that feminine marker in the grammar that the earth is a goddess in this instance, right? But the word Odun is another word for land, for earth, for ground, for base, which we'll see a little bit later, right? And that word Odun is what is cognate with Deniet, throne, Deniet, land register, and in the Abibio language is Edion, earth, soil. In Naga, that I mentioned earlier, Odun, the lower one, the land, the earth. In the Arabic language is Dune A. And just like in Hebrew, when you talk about Adama, that A is the feminine marker that is attached to words for land, right? And so in Arabic, Dunea, earth, this world, and then Adina, lower. And so the concept of earth is equivalent to also it's used for directions, just like the word for head is used for words for north. And the words for left arm and right arm are used for where it depends on which way you're facing. But for the ancient Egyptians, the left hand and arm represented the east, and the right hand represented the west. Their north, their head was facing what we would call south, and their feet, their south, was what we would call north, right? Because they're following the head of the Nile River, right? So we know the Nile River flows up in Africa, right? So in Hebrew, Adon, meaning base, under, below, to be inferior, right? So these are the works. And so what I'm going to demonstrate here is that there is the word for land is equivalent to the word for woman in these African languages. And we see this in ancient Egypt with the word for set, meaning seat. Because remember, the word for land is also going to be the word for throne, seat. So it's seat, place, position, throne, residence, place, seat, position, rank, also used as an abstract prefix. So this is used grammatically for the abstract. And that's exactly what the feminine T suffix is used for in the language, and its equivalent in other African languages. But this same word here is the same word for woman, wife, right? And this right now is being used as an abstract for this word Hemet, because this word here by itself means woman, wife, and female person. So it's Zet Hemet, woman, female person. But this Zet, which is this right here, is being used in the abstract. And so these are the same, right? And then in the Nandi language, this is where we get the word aset from. And aset is in the Nandi language, usutyat, or usutya, usut, married woman, wife. In Collagen, usutyat, married woman, wife, right? So these deities, these names, they live on in these African languages. We know how to access them, right? So now I'm gonna get on the issue of the feminine T. So I brought up Modupe Oduyoye earlier, and he's going to essentially agree with, or I should say that Oduyoye and Jean-Claude Mboli are coming towards the same location when it comes to this aspect of the conversation. So I'm gonna deal with Jean-Claude Mboli's text, his 2010 text on the origins of African languages, right? And so I'm gonna have, for those of you who read the French, you can come back and pause it, but I have it translated into English for you. So I'm gonna do the French, and then I'm gonna do the English. So he says here, starting on page 298, he's dealing with the feminine T, the origin of the feminine T in the ancient Egyptian language, or in Negro Egyptian more specifically, or I should say the feminine marker, the feminine morpheme, right? So he says here, etymologically, therefore, the woman is the person who has a belly. So we're defining what a woman is in traditional African languages, or more precisely, who can have one. In other words, who can be pregnant? Therefore, the female, the woman. She is also the main part of the female unit, the family unit. This is exactly the definition of the word mother in many Negro African languages, where the mother is conceived as the stable and essential part of the family. Compare, for example, Shekinah Jobs, the cultural unity of Black Africa. Thus, the Sango word, Sango is a language in Central Africa. The word ta, meaning mother or woman, covers the following meanings. And so this is the French at the top. We're still on page 298 here, and it says mother, base, large part, important part, stable part, root, foundation. And then, of course, woman and female, and female more specifically when applied to animals in the Sango language. So this is how even amongst the 5%ers in the Nation of Islam, right? You always hear them talking about their mother or their queen or their wife, and they refer to to the woman as the earth. You know, God give us so I seek the old earth, for the Wu-Tang Clan fans. Can it be so also simple then, right? And so this has an ancient, there's a reason why the majority of these African groups see the sky as father and then the earth as mother. And what I argue is that part of it is due to the equivalence of the word for land and for earth and the word for woman itself. They're synonymous historically, right? And so he gives an example, continues. This is the French for those who want to pause and read it. But he continues, this semantics, and a semantics has to deal with the way that a community maps their vocabulary with ideas in the minds and their heads, right? There's a correlation between certain themes and how they map them to particular words. So that's the semantics. This semantics helps us to understand why the Negro Egyptian morpheme, whose primary meaning is mother, we're talking about the feminine T, is also used in the collective nouns and the abstract nouns, even after the 6 languages separated. So even when we go back to this particular slide here, the word set is a word for place, for residence. And we can see other equivalents for land, space, and things of that nature. But it's also the word for woman. But it's also used as a prefix of the abstract, which we see just one example here. And I don't know if this is used for the collective, but definitely the T is used for the collective in Egyptian. And so he gives this example in the Sango language. And so that ta, remember this, the word ta here meaning mother, woman, right? Ta Kondo, prehistory, is a prefix on a root ando, meaning formerly, right? So what came before. So now it's an abstract concept, Ta Kondo, meaning prehistory. So we have Takanga, selection criteria, an abstract concept from a root konga, or kanga, meaning filter, right? And so this is how we get, to, and I wish, we had time to really kind of go through the linguistics of it. But I just want to give you an analysis here. So this is our good brother, Elder Dr. Modupe Oduyoye. And in this particular book here, Traditional Religion in West Africa, he has several articles. And one of the articles, I have the book on me right now. And shout out to our good brother, Kevin Shield Hurd in the building. I see all the noops are going crazy because they was on Super Bowl. We'll let y'all have your little 5 minutes of fame with our good brother Usher. But he has an article in here, or a chapter in this text, called "The Spider, the Chameleon, and the Creation of the Earth," right? And so, I draw the next couple of slides, from that particular chapter, in the text. And so, him being also a Christian theologian, he translated the Bible into Yoruba. He knows a lot, of course, about the Semitic languages, and especially Hebrew, and more specifically the Bible itself. So, he has this in the, we're representing the Hebrew language here in Proverbs 8:26. And, it's this had lo, hasa, eresh, we husut, we rosh, haferut, tebel, and translates as before he had made eresh, which is the earth, and husut, which is the dust, and the rosh of dust, right? Because this is another variation of the word for dust. And this is the hafrut, tabel. And the word tabel is really a word for earth or for land. And so, hold on one sec. Right. And so you can pause this, and we're just going to skip to the bottom one right here, which he links the Hebrew word hosult, with host meaning outside. My bad. This should be outside. So the earth, the land, and outside nature, the market. And so this ult is the feminine plural. So what we're going to see is a theme that when the words for land, for outside and the like, they're often suffixed or prefixed with words for the feminine, which derive from words literally meaning woman, right? And so he equates this Hebrew word to hasa, waje, outside, with tree, asase, the earth. And asase ya is the earth goddess, right? And Igbo is uzao, way, road, path, door. And the word for outside is frequently a synonym for earth or land, as he rightfully discusses. And so we see the word for ta, or so-called ter, in the Egyptian language, meaning land, country, and a bit more. In Igbira, it is ete, earth, land, earth goddess, right? Bini Edo, Autau, earth, ground, soil, earth goddess. In Urhobo, Altau, earth. Epi, these are all Nigerian and Benin languages, right? Utau, ground. In Guinea, Oto, ground. Degema, Utau, ground. And then in Hebrew, Mata, below, right? That same ta or ter, the nasalized uvular trill, this second consonant here was dropped. This is what I demonstrate in the text, the 2023 text, Race and Identity in Ancient Egypt, that this word for land, the second consonant was dropped in the language, and this became the T suffix for space. And this is what merged. And so notice that in the compared, at least in these two compared languages, is not only the earth, but it's also the earth goddess. So it was already, the word itself is already considered a feminine entity, because as I told you before, the word for land and the word for woman, mother, etc. is the same. So this is how the feminine T came into the ancient Egyptian language, with the reduction of the word ter, meaning land, but also earth goddess, right? And so this is the word for earth or land, but it means earth, land as an element of the cosmos, land as a geopolitical entity, Egypt itself, but also the soil and materials. You can confirm that with the 3 soil dots that is under the land stretch here. Arable land, land for construction, and area measurement, right? And we can see for semantics that this is another word here, Zarechu, because there's the word zer, meaning arable land, and it has these other 2 suffixes here, which means ground, floor, and earth, right? So these are see the messages there. All righty. And Cuban crisis. I'm gonna need you to really understand whose page you're on, and what we do here. So so you won't be confused thinking that you're saying something profound when in fact you are not. But we are going to continue. And so, as we said earlier, as Odùduwà said earlier, outside is frequently a synonym for earth or land, right? But it's also a word for, it becomes a word for market. So the reflex of ancient Egyptian ter, because the second consonant is dropped just like every other ones here, is the word ita, meaning outside, market. But there's another reflex, is ite, that we saw earlier, meaning throne. But this word Yoruba ita means outside, market, country, land. In Ijebu Yoruba, ita, outside, street, market, which in the Ewe language is asi, market. And there's a voice variant in the word, the Yoruba word ode, outside, like an ode remo, right? And a reflex of this same root is, we were introduced to this word earlier, idi, meaning buttocks, root, base, reason. So you can see there's a consistent semantic theme surrounding these particular roots. And so we're going to go back here, because we're going to deal with this deity here among the Akan, Asase, because this is going to be important, because the ancient Egyptians also have Asase. You know her as Isis, right? But we'll get to that in a second. So just to give you some source material to understand, what who Asase is another. This is the earth goddess amongst the Akan in the Ashanti. So the talking drums address Asasiya of the Asante as spirit of the earth with its dust. So R.S. Rattray in this book called The Ashanti, right? When you go on Wikipedia, it says the name Asase means land in tree. The name Yah means one born on Thursday. Now, I don't know where they got this from. This is in fact false. So we'll deal with this anyway. So they're trying to say that the name Asasiya means Asasi, the land born on Thursday. The the Asante don't have a word for Thursday. They didn't have our days of the week. That it was, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's not what Asasiya means, right? And this is a representation of Asasiya. And I forgot what museum this is, but we're going to continue. So that word Asase is in the Ewe language, Asi, and is used for the market. And remember, the word Asi is just a reflex of the same root, ter, meaning, or ta, meaning earth, and outside and market. And so, but just like, because again, that when we're dealing with the earth and we're dealing with the land, it is mainly seen as feminine. And so in this particular text in German, they're going to tell you among the Ewe that the marketplace is personified as a woman. So the market is a very important place in Peki, in the East and elsewhere too. I see the market is actually personified and worshipped as a guardian spirit. In one of the Peki towns, the guardian spirit of the market is Asino, mother of the market. Asino watches over the peace of the market, right? And so this is from Jacob Spieth. And so that word no in Asi, because we already were introduced to Asi, is the word for market. The no in Asino is the word for mother, and which is in the Igbo language, ne, mother, in tree, ena, mother. In the tree, the word ya is also another word for mother, and is equivalent to the Yoruba word iya, mother. There's another to reinforce the feminine aspect of Asasiya as mother, as a role as the goddess. She has another title in a tree language, Aberewa, from the root bere, or for the phrase bere and wa, old woman. The tree word bere is cognate with grebo, which is in Liberia, a language in Liberia, bro, meaning earth. And Aramaic, the Semitic language, bar, meaning earth, which I argue is cognate with the mer and ta mary, meaning earth, arable land, and the like. That's another conversation for another day. And so Oduyoye makes the connection between the Hausa word Hasa, meaning earth, soil, country, land, and says that it is cognate with Nkazi in Chichewa or in Bantu period, meaning woman, wife. Kikongo is Nkazi. By contrast, Hebrew Shemayim, or Shemayim, the heavens, and Hasa Sama, heaven, is masculine, right? It doesn't have the feminine suffixes that the other words have unto itself. So we'll continue. And I put here as a note so I can investigate to see if the word casa in the Latin languages, house, hut, cottage, cabin, is cognate, because the word for land also is a word for place, as we saw earlier, and it could be the word for residence. So just like how we saw with set, so the word for seat and place is also the word for residence. So that's how the word for like land and throne and seat become the word for house, hut, and all the like, right? but the online etymological dictionary says it's of uncertain origin. And so usually, you know, 6 times out of 10, when it's an uncertain origin of such an old term, more than likely it has an African origin. But, you know, here's that same word again. But it also means grounds, like the grounds of the house, right? So we're seeing a theme here. So the feminine, the word for woman, and the word for ground, land, earth are the same in these particular languages, right? So that's why, as I stated earlier, the feminine T in Egyptian comes from the word ter, earth, which was a goddess amongst other African languages. And so amongst the Tria Santi, it's Asasi Ya, the spirit of the earth goddess. It's the word for earth, land, and then they juxtapose it with a word for mother, for woman, or just a female principle. And it's the same thing with Hebrew, husut, the feminine plural, meaning outside. This word here, the hafer, ut, meaning dust, which has these equivalents in the Acholi language in the Yoruba, and Yoruba has a metathesis. In the Mende language, ma ndo, mother earth, ma indo, earth. And then, of course, we were introduced to Ewe Asino, market mother. And in the Yoruba language, there's an interchange between the j sound, y, and w. And so this root here, je and oje, he was, he is, he happened to be. This word here means to exist, to be, to live, to dwell. And here's a biform, ji, wake up from sleep, back into consciousness and life. And it's the same root when it has a different prefix, the word for blood. The word for blood in Yoruba is literally the word for life. In Alger, the dead come back to life, living after death, right? And so this interchanges with wa, to be, to exist, iwa, uwa, being, existence, life, manner of being, manner of existence. So when you see those proposals of Odùduwà, that's that uwa here, or iwa, it means being, existence, life, and which is equivalent to u is are in Egyptian, and Igbo iwu, to be, and which gives us the name Hawa in Hebrew and Aramaic, to be. It is where we get the name Hawa, Eve, from. So when you say Eve, like when you say Adam is Hadam, and then and for the word Eve is Hava or Hava, Eve, but it's just simply a word for life, you know, and woman and mother. That's all it is. So that's when this is how you know that Adam and Eve didn't exist. They're eponymous names, right? And there are two aspects. Adam and Eve are really two aspects of the same concept. They're both earth deities that in the Jewish and Christianization, they try to demythalize so it doesn't seem like they're worshiping many gods. But Adam and Eve are just earth deities. And the same thing I argue that Aset and Osiris, they're former earth deities. But we'll get into that a little later. So that same Iwa, Uwa, in the Hausa is the word Uwa for mother. In the Jukun language, these are all, you know, Nigerian languages. Uwa, mother. It gives way to Ewa because the word Iwa has to deal with existence and character, right? And so character is where you get the word for beauty from. So someone of good character, someone of good life, someone of good existence, someone of good temperament. Ewa, beauty, is which we find in Hebrew as ta'awa, beauty. And so remember that the W and the Y is interchange. So It is Iye, Iya, mother, the one who brings life. Oye, he survived, he lived. Because the O is the he, she, it. Iye, survival, salvation, life. Aye, life, earthly existence, world. So Aye is the same word as Iye, mother, earth. They're the same. So in Uwa, in the Igbo language, Uwa, the world. In Hebrew, hey, living, being, right? And so that 1996 is that blue book that we saw earlier, Words and Meaning in Yoruba Religion, right? So what we're seeing here, for example, is Iye, Iya, mother, the one who brings life, is the same as Aye, life, earthly existence, world, earth. Iye, survival, salvation, life. In the Nimbe Ijo, which is in southeast Nigeria, they have the word Ayo, meaning mother, and Nimbe Ijo, meaning, excuse me, that's the same language. They have the word Aye, meaning earth, world, life, a state of living. In Hausa, we introduced that Uwa, mother, Igbo, Uwa, the world. And so, probably like 1,000 years ago or so, 1,000, maybe 1,500 years ago, the Igbo and Yoruba languages were one language. So they just split. So, this here Uwa is the what I'm arguing is because it's still the same as the word for being, existence. So there's no separation. They're all the same word with just slight different semantic shading, right? So now you can better understand my proposal for Odùduwà, because again, as we showed, they don't understand the usage of the word. But in my proposal here, it explains how Odùduwà becomes the deity for earth, because Odùduwà, I argue, comes from Odundun Uwa, earth base, mother earth. So instead of reading Uwa as simply existence, as life, it should be read in the same way as Igbo, Uwa, the world, right? Land. But it's a feminine instance, so it's used. So just like the word for, let's go back, how the word ta in another of these African languages, especially in Nigeria, is not simply a word for land, but also the earth goddess. It's a deity in the goddess form. This becomes the feminine T in the language, right? And so the semantics exists in all of these different related languages. They use the same, they put the same thing. When it comes to word for earth, if they already just have a word for earth itself, they'll come back and put a word for woman or female or mother next to it, because the earth is seen as feminine, right? And so this is the proposal here. And so this Odun is cognate with the word Kimet that we saw earlier, and that we established with the sound meaning correspondences. So Odun or Odùduwà would be equivalent to Kimet. It would be Odun, Kim, and then the feminine T would be Uwa. That would be its equivalent. So Odùduwà and the word Kimet, if my hypothesis is correct, they would be cognate, right? And so I want to explore this notion of Asasiya and Isis a little bit, and we're going to end here. So this is a screenshot from one of Jean-Claude Mboli's recent, I shouldn't say presentations. He did, well, it was a presentation that he did at a conference that he has a full article on this, and it's going to be published later on this year. But what he's showing here is that the days of the week among the Akan are actual deities, and some of them have correspondences with ancient Egyptian deities. And so he's just first kind of establishing between these particular languages, Bonon, Ewe, Agni, Baale, that they have the same grammatical features when it comes to these particular days of the week, right? So if you were, this is the day, and then the masculine and feminine, prefixes and suffixes. So garçon, masculine, quoi, ku, ku, and sometimes it's prefixed and suffixed. So the K becomes weak and lost, and it just becomes O or ow. And so Kofi. So if you have a brother named Kofi, the Ko in Kofi is a masculine prefix, which would be equivalent to ancient Egyptian W suffix. So Kuami, right? And, I was born on Monday, so I think I'm Kojo. So, it's Ojo. But the Ku or Ko is the masculine prefix, and then a feminine suffix is the A, but it's also prefixed in at least in this language, Bonon, right? But that's neither here nor there. That's just for y'all to kind of glean, and I can't wait for the article. But this is the trick here. So what he's showing is that they have 7 days a week now, and each day is governed by a deity. And so what he's saying is that on the Asase, the first day that's governed by Asase is equivalent to Isis. The gem he doesn't have a equivalent for, but Keper is pity amongst the Akan, and Hehe is cuckoo in amongst the Akan, and then Ra is Eya, and I'm sorry, this is Nepri, and then Kepri doesn't have a particular day, but actually they would be the same, because the root for Nepri and the root for Kepri is PR, having to do with grow to existence, to propagate. And then, of course, Amen and Yame, right? And so we've dealt with, Amen and Ra amongst the Akan. And so I haven't read his paper just yet on his proof, but we can deal with it here because we've already done it, dealing with Yoruba. And so in the article that I showed at the beginning that I've submitted on the etymology of the name Osiris, I showed that the word for Osiris and the word for Aset are built from the same root, and that it ultimately has to deal with support, to be firm, to be grounded. And so it has many manifestations: the word for throne, the word for tree, the word for staff, which you see here, these are staffs, all with the same root, right? And these are just different variations of how this root manifests itself in the Egyptian language, including the goddess Waset, which is, you see this symbol here, this is Waset, and this is Aset. And then we know Wisir. And so it all has to deal with holding up something. To remember that the word for ground also means to prop up, to hold up something, right? So again, there's these different layers of semantic meaning, based upon this notion of firmness, stableness. And of course, if we go back to, let me find that from Mboli. So remember that when we're dealing with the mother, The mother is seen as the base, the large part, the important part, the stable part, the root and the foundation. This is why she is equivalent to the earth. And the from this notion of earth is that which holds you up. Because without the earth, of course, you would just be floating in space. Right. So this is what we glean, from that, and getting back to this. And so Asasi is the word that becomes Isis and becomes Asis amongst the collagen. But this is a later adaptation amongst the collagen, because now they associate Asis, instead of with the ground, the earth, they associate her with the sun among the collagen in Kenya. Right. But this word wasir, or resir, because as I discussed in the upcoming chapter, there are some Egyptologists who argue that there is no W in the front here, that it's spelled just like Isis with the addition of this year, that's represented by the I hieroglyph. But I discuss that in the text. And so I argue that both Aset and Asar are borrowings from a related language somewhere in the Sudan, and that these were originally earth deities that became symbolic with the throne and kingship altogether. And all of these have there's a matrix of meaning, from to prop up, to hold, to lean, to rest, to sit, and pillar, and tree, and all of these things you can see with Asar and Aset. And even to this notion of the land and ground, like what we saw with the word set, because this is one of the pronunciations of the throne symbol. It is the word for ground, floor, and place. It is used as the abstract, but it also, from a semantic standpoint, there's no difference between the concept of to lift, meaning to prop up, to hold up, or to sit down. Right? They're both acts of stabilization. And we can see these in these related languages dealing with the Kim root. Right? So to sit, kam, to lift. In Berber, kayam, sit. In Semitic, kum, koma, komam, kwamam, rise, get up, stand up. Right? So we can see semantically, and this is from the Tower of Babel database, there's no difference semantically in the minds of ancient people between sitting and standing up and getting up. It's both stabilizing acts. It's to be grounded, to be rooted in a foundation. So this is why in Chiluba we have chikom, inkum, ngam, mukam, to sit, and this word is also the word for location, just like in ancient Egyptian, the word for set, meaning place, residence. And it's also the throne for which you sit. And so that same consonant sequence gives you chief, someone of social weight, wakam, chikoma, chief, and king. So just like how the word for set, the word for throne, and to sit gives you these words for the king and queen here. This is the first king and queen, children of the earth, who are themselves earth deities. Right? And this is why I argue that the word, that Osir, the blackness, has to deal with land, in soil, in the underworld. And that, the original, and I would have to pull up a different slideshow, but the original form of this word for Osir is Ker, in Keri, right? And in Nimbo Ijo, in southeast Nigeria, you have the word Kiri, meaning earth, and then Amakiri, the earth god, right? and it means male among the Nimbe. In the Grebo language, which we know is in Liberia, means Kri, meaning farm. There's a reason why Osiris is associated with farming, and he has all those colors. These are all the colors dealing with phenomena on the land. In Hebrew, Ekar, tiller of the soil. In the Greek, Kares, earth god, which they got from Egypt, Akir. So this Akir, earth deity, is the native variant, the original variant, or one of the original variants in the manifestations of Osir in the ancient Egyptian imagination that they find in the Old Kingdom. There's a related term, this form here, which becomes Wasir and Osir, which came later, that was from a group in Sudan, where the K palatalized into S or Z, right? And so this is Aker, was an earth god and a god of the netherworld. This is how Osiris takes on the moniker of the netherworld, often represented as the lord of the netherworld, often represented as a narrow strip of land flanked by a pair of lions or sphinxes or human heads facing the eastern and western gates of the netherworld. And as I demonstrate in the upcoming chapter on the etymology of Osiris, the original depiction of Osiris was like this. He had a regular reddish brown skin, and he was in humanoid form like this, not in mummy form that you see here. But this is the reason why he is this pitch black, because it has to deal with the earth, right? And these are different variations of the KR root. In Sumerian, Ker or Kir, underworld. There's a, land, country, mountains. Collagen, or farmland, place, or residential area of land where people live. Korit, country, place, world, land. And these are cognate with the word Kimet. These are just variations of the word Kimet. And so, you'll come to, when you start dealing with African languages and you start dealing with historical comparative linguistics, you're realizing that there was a long standing interactions between these African languages. And that's why you have these doublets from the proto languages, from the earlier forms that we mentioned earlier. So like I can come back and show an example here. That's why you have these different variations of the same word, because in the proto language, before there was a Yoruba as we know it, before there was an Egyptian as we know it, before there was a Sumerian as we know it, the proto language from which all of these descend, there was already differentiation in languages, and they all came and converged in a particular spot. And all of these words began to have different semantic slippage with the presence and the loss of grammatical morphemes and the like. And this is how you get all these different variations. And this, in matter of fact, it is the reason, because of these doublets, that we can tell that they all belong to the same proto-language. They all descend from the same proto-language, because it would be impossible to have by chance these doublets, for example, in Yoruba, in ancient Egyptian, and even Sumerian by accident. It's impossible. The only way that you can account for these is that these differentiations already existed in the proto-language. So there's a larger language for which the proto-language that gave birth to Sumerian, Yoruba, and ancient Egyptian, that proto-language is a sub-language of that larger language, right? Which that proto-language is what I call Chena Intu in my text. So I'm just going to end there, and we have a few moments. So I don't know if y'all have any questions or comments. I'm going to check in the chat, but what I want to do is open it up to the chat. So if you want to join the conversation, if you want to join, click the link. Y'all know how we do. So boom. So and I guess I would have to go on YouTube so that I can pin the link to the top. So that's what we're going to do. And so I have now pinned it to the top. So so now I can check. I'm gonna go back up and see if there's any comments, anything. See. Zoo221 says this makes sense because Aset, Asta, Asti, Astu, Ise is a female name, yet Asta means seat or price of the seat of a woman at the market. Is that in Wolof? Are you saying that's the what languages are you referring to? Zoo221. And I know it's going to be a delay, so I'll wait a bit. He says, can you explain Geb? Peace and blessings. Yeah, Geb is the same way. Geb is, see, the reason why Geb isn't feminine is because they didn't suffix the word Geb with a feminine suffix. But when you see Newt, because the new has a T suffix, they interpret it as feminine. So that's why the heavens is feminine, but the earth is masculine in ancient Egyptian. It's all because of the grammar of the words. But Geb is just another word for land, for earth. And I talk about that in the text. And matter of fact, let me see, because I have my, let's see, well, Geb. So let me see if this works. So this is, I'm gonna share my screen. So I'm gonna deal. Nope. Remember, if you have a question, you can hit the link if you want to join the conversation. Share my screen, entire screen. So boom. So hopefully y'all can see this. So this is just my word version of the text of the 2023 text, Race and Identity in Ancient Egypt. So on page 215, if you have the book, I deal with that, what is cognate with Geb, and there's other areas where I deal with this more specifically, but 215 is where you can go, so where you can see cognates for it. So what I'm demonstrating in this section here is that Kiduru, this word Idan, this word, the word Kre that we saw earlier, all of these are different variations of the same ancestral form. And so the word Geb is actually the same word as the word Kimet. It's the same word as the word Iker. They're from different languages. So we got to remember that ancient Egypt was, after the Green Sahara is started drying up, different groups started converging along the Nile River, trying to find water. These are different language groups that had different religions, and they tried to synthesize these in terms of the formation of the Egyptian state. right? And that's a big conversation that we have to have. But we find cognates for the word geb in the Zande language. I heard somebody come in, and I can't see. Oh no, that's because I'm on. Let me do it like this. We have Shez Mupata Amin. Welcome to the program. I'm gonna be with you in just a second. I'm sorry.
Peace, Asar. What's happening?
Oh, peace. Nothing much. Hold on one sec. So, if y'all can see, I don't know. Well, so you can see that in the Yoruba language, this word geb is cognate with this word agbe, meaning live and dwell, and igbe, bush, which is in Hebrew yageb, and agbe, farmer, which is in Hebrew is yagab, to till the earth, ewe, be, bush, be alive. So you can see even in the be forms, the so-called geb forms, the word for life and the word for land and world are the same. And so the feminine part comes with the word for mother, because she's the one who gives life. She's the one that could be pregnant, right? And so they view the sky and the heavens as masculine, one because it's distance, and it's the liquids that come from the sky, the heavens, that inseminate the earth, which gives birth to the life in which we know. So they're showing the semiotic relationship between these two regions of our existence, and they personify them as, sky father and earth mother. But as the ancient Egyptians have shown, they can flip that, but it's all based on the grammar. So in the Epe language, Agba, farm. In Guinea, Agba, farm. In Ewe, Aje, or Ewe or Aja and Gay, Agba, life. Fawn, Be, world, life of plants and of men, etc. And so this same word, so we get the God Geb from this partial reduplication here, Gebeb, just like how we have Kamim for black is a partial reduplication. This word here is for earth and field. And so with the prefix, just like with Aset and with Osir, this becomes the word for flood, right? And I show that this is the particular relationship in the Egyptian and in the other African languages, that the word, because they all ultimately come from a word for foot, and the word for foot becomes a word for ground, and the word for foot via the word for run becomes the word for water. So that's how the word for water and flood and all this becomes synonymous with land, because they come from the same root. And so but I will go to the chat. I'm sorry, to the panel, and peace and blessings, Shesmu.
Peace. Yeah, we some of us jump on over. Sorry, Jonathan Owens said you had a stream going. So send us on over here to support you.
I appreciate it. Were you able to catch any of it?
Of your presentation?
Yes.
Just a tad bit, but it definitely sounds like it's making great sense. So, yeah, you still in it. You still doing it. You still doing it.
Got to. Yeah, it's becoming more and more clear the deeper and deeper I get into the languages and start understanding. And this is why in my 2016 book on Nesubiti, I have a whole chapter on semantics. Like, semantics is so much very important, and it's often neglected even amongst professionals when they're doing historical comparative linguistics. And without a good grounding in semantics, we won't be able to understand the, because each word exists within a matrix, a field of meaning. It's never, a word doesn't simply mean just one thing unto itself. Like, there's if there's an object, there's an object meaning, and then that object can be used abstractly.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
So like, just like how you say, like, you have a physical head, but then I can say Shesmu is the head of the company.
Right.
Right. It's the same word, but now the word head means leader.
Right.
It's not referring to the physical head. So now, by metaphoric extension, I've increased the range of meaning from this particular root.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what's happening with these words for earth and land. Right.
Yeah. And that's wonderful about language. I was just going to say that's wonderful about language. It's alive. It grows.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you also mentioned
Exactly.
with the K, you said the double M, even in the Meta Nature, KMM is, you can see it there in the Meta Nature. Not just KM.
It's just like, I'm gonna show you. I don't know if you were here for this part of the conversation. Let me get that from there. Oh, I guess I can still.
I came in when
there.
you were about the Ost.
All
the
right.
Osti.
So what I show here, and there's more detail in the text, is that, and it's more so proven here, right? Like, so
you, I got all your books. You forgot.
Oh, okay.
You signed.
Hey, well, I just got to say, for the sake of those in the audience who may not have it. So you can see so these are doublets of the same root in both Yoruba and in ancient Egyptian. And so you can see that there's a root. For example, this word Kim, meaning black and dark, there's a Kamim, to be black or dark. And this exists in both verb form and in nominal form as Kamim. So people think that, like it's a gemination or extension, but it's a partial reduplication. So here, there's the K has been palatalized to Z, and in the Yoruba language, the K, and we'll show it in a bit, has been both palatalized to the D and Sh or S, which means ultimately that the K became Ch and Z, and from there it split further, right? So you see here is doo-doo, black, dark. But but when we just want to say a black person or someone who was very black or jet black, you would say I do, because that I prefix is the prefix of agent, right? So we know that this doo-doo is partially reduplicated, just like this word shu, to be dark, to darken, and the akan is soon, to be dark, right? But in this doo-doo, we know it's reduplicated because it's equivalent in the Akan language is tum-tum. You see? So the second consonant has been dropped in doo-doo. And so we prove that with its correlation to the word Kim in Egyptian, because in both variants of black and dark in Egyptian, the KM and the ZM variant, they have the M, and just like with the Khan, there's the M, and this is an M, even though it's an N, but the M becomes N in the presence in front of T. That makes sense. So it changes, right?
Yeah.
So So in that same vein, so we've already established here that Kim is equivalent to do or do in a reduplicated form. So this do is kamimim or right here, right? But
Yeah.
we see, for example, that even in Egyptian, the second consonant is dropped, just like what we see here in Yoruba. And so it's just cuckoo, darkness, which we see in Sumerian, cuckoo, and then kukuku. So you see this is reduplicated 3 times, but in the center in the Sumerian, the U is dropped. So it just, the 2 K's are together right here. So it's kuku, right? And then in the Sango language is kuku, darkness. So it's triple, just like it is in Sumerian in these languages. So you see this reduplication here in Egyptian. So this cuckoo is equivalent to doo-doo. Like, if I don't know if you ever bought, you've been to an African street festival and then you buy some doo-doo soap, the black soap. Yeah. So that's what that means. So basically you buying Kim soap. But notice, so like I said, there's a doublet. So you have okunkun, darkness, horror, okun, dark in the language in Yoruba. So you see is reduplicated here as well. So okunkun and doo-doo is the second consonant is dropped. So there's so this is why it's important to do these comparisons, because they help to explain the different variations of the same word itself.
Right. You can definitely see the similarities.
Yeah. And it's regular. That's why you have to have many examples, right?
Right.
Because you never want to make the argument, with just a few examples, then somebody comes behind you and say, well, that's a chance resemblance. That's just a look-alike. No, this is a series. We can see this. This is regular every time, we analyze these particular terms. And so I just want to quickly acknowledge again, Brother Zoo. So he said yes, and Wolof. He says, my bad, I'm at work. I understand.
You had asked him what
so
that was.
So Asa, Asta, bail a boat, clean up, sweep up. Says, peace and blessings to Scarab Chronicles. And
what up, Zoo?
He says Khan bin Za Alaman. No, soon there is a variant soon black. Remember, there's different dialects of Tree and Akan. And so Toom and then Toom is black and dark, and so is Soom in Akan. It says do in Akan means tough or strong. I'm pretty sure there's many variants of do in Akan. It says digging a new handle and Gina new handle. Okay, having a different conversation.
We just got finished speaking about that. There's many variations as words grow.
Yeah, it's always and see, this is what people don't understand. Like when you are in a place like Africa, there's many different dialects, and over time words can have different meanings and associations. And then what'll happen is, as these dialects split, their offspring and their children sometime later will somehow, for some reason, meet up again. And when they meet up again, they'll have these 2 variations of the same word that are spoken slightly differently. And now they're sharing and exchanging. And now it's, they don't realizing, because, they're not linguists,
But do they mean
this is a relatively, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Will they have meant the same, or will they, when they come back around, they mean totally different things?
It may mean something totally different that you may not see. Because, for example, we can reconstruct in the China, Intu, or African languages a word for arm, right? Now, this same word for arm becomes in one language the word for snake. In another language, it becomes the signifier for the word for elephant. And then in another language, it becomes the word for giraffe.
The neck.
So what's the common feature between all three of these entities that we just mentioned?
That elongation.
That elongation. So that, you know, they looked at that and first applied it to the arm. So it's just a word for limb. But then they see an elephant and they're like, they got, you know, there's one big arm. So, you know, that with the one big arm. that's probably how the mind of the ancient worked. And then the other was like, well, they got an arm for a neck.
Right.
You know, this becomes the word for a giraffe, right? And so when their descendants, you know, cross paths again, and they exchange and they interact and they exchange with each other, they're not realizing that these are the same words for these different entities. They seem unrelated. So when you do historical comparative linguistics, you do it at a minimum on two levels. You do it with words that mean exactly the same. So when you're doing your first comparative list, you know, we call it a Swadesh list. It's like of 100 terms. These you're trying to make connections with words that, you know, mean exactly the same. That there's, you know, there's not much variation from it, right? So that you can establish the sound meaning correspondences. Then from there, one-to-one. So you know that first, you know, if I want to use a mathematics terms, that first part of the process is to establish functions. So, you know, a function in math, it has one input and it can only have one output. So if you know f of x, whatever the input is for x, y equals one, you know, particular plot. So if you have, you know, the old school graph, you know, the x and y axis. So, you know, for this x, if I input what is the outcome, which is y at this particular point, that's a function, right? If we start, you know, graphing, so that's what you're looking for. You're looking for functions, you know, in the first iteration, but you know, it's not a function if that one input can have two or more outputs. So in that second iteration, you're not looking for functions. You're seeing how the semantics has expanded or has been restricted over time amongst the related languages. So that's when you're able to discover these other meanings and how they're being applied. So that's why you can never say, you know, like I turned in an article for a journal one time and they rejected it. And one of the comments was on one of my comparisons that these two words don't mean the same. And I'm like, who the hell is this giving this commentary? This, for a word to be cognate, it doesn't have to mean the same. It doesn't have to have the same. We're not looking for a function. We're looking for a function in the first process to establish the sound laws. But if I can demonstrate and show you, which I did in the text, that this derived meaning comes from this particular root, and we see the same in these other related languages, you have to contend that this is cognate with this, because all cognate means is they come from the same root. Cognate does not mean that they are the same meaning.
Okay.
Because if I say head leader, you know, if I said, you know, he's the head of the company, Head can mean chief, leader, beginning,
Right.
the front. Like head can mean so much. Matter of fact, the word for head in Indo-European is the word for chapter.
Right.
Because it's the same. It's the
Sorry.
same chapet. It's the same word. So it literally means the beginning of a section, the head of a section. So that's what a chapter is.
Yeah.
So now you can break it down into sections. So like, words don't necessarily evolve out of its essential meaning. You just have a core meaning, and then you have expanded meanings due to metaphoric extension.
Or you get into the changes of how it's spoken, the gluteal, the nasal, and then that's when your letters begin to change.
Exactly. So the see what people, the reason why we have those different forms that you saw in Egyptian, in Yoruba, and in Sumerian is because there was a loss in the proto language of certain prefixes and suffixes. And so certain prefixes and suffixes create environments that motivate sound change.
Yeah.
And so if a language loses those grammatical morphemes over time, now you're just left with the different variations of the same word.
Right.
And so that's something that is clear for historical comparative linguists now. As a matter of fact, I cite in the text Dr. Lilius Homburger from the 1940s, who talk about that in her text on African languages, because she's talking about how in Wolof and in Fulani and in Bantu, how there's a consonant interchange. So you'll see a word with K in one variant as the first consonant, and then in another variant of the same word, it'll be S. So the only way that you, because there's no what we say motivation. There doesn't appear to be a like a vowel motivation for the change in these two consonants. The only logical conclusion is that there was a loss of a prefix that initiated that particular change, and it is no longer there. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I think sometimes that happens because when groups of people learn other groups' language, sometimes they aren't able to say the word exactly the way the initial group says it, and
Exactly.
it ends up having a change when it goes into their language or goes into their group.
Exactly. And that's a matter of fact, in the my 2020 text of Luja Volume 2, I cite a text where, and just to give a little bit of background, they're talking about how women are the motivators for sound change in the languages, and specifically amongst these nomadic pastoralists, because what nomadic pastoralists will do, they'll do these cattle raids, and when they do these cattle raids against other pastoral groups, they'll often take the women, and they'll take the women and then marry them off within the group to get more cattle. So cattle is wealth. So the woman is just a means to an end, right? So we go steal women and then marry them off to other groups so we can get their cattle. But oftentimes these women speak different languages.
That's what I was going to say.
So what ends up happening, exactly. So what ends up happening is, in these forced arrangements, of course, they're marrying and having children, but who's the caretaker of the children?
The mother.
The mothers. So the mother is not only learning the language of the people who, you know, she was stolen from, but she's also teaching her child or her children her language.
Yes.
And so this is how a lot of borrowings and mispronunciations and reduplications of mispronunciations, you know, expand into the language itself. So, you know, that's why they say that, you know, women in the minds of these Nilotic groups are the source of sound change.
Makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm. Hold on one second. Donnie Williams, do you have the book? If so, can you tell us how far it doesn't delve into race and identity, or is it geared more towards linguistic side of the matter? Yeah, this if you're talking about race and identity in ancient Egypt, this one deals more on the linguistic side. Volume 2 is going to deal more on the race picture, but I linked the discussion of Kimet from a linguistic point of view to the race discussion. But the race discussion is going to have its exclusive commentary in volume 2, and volume 2 is going to be an edited volume. So I'll be the editor of the text, but there's going to be other scholars who have submitted their work that's going to tackle. So I'm going to let these particular experts deal with those things, and then I'll deal with these other things in Egyptology and the culture, and of course using language to make the greater argument. But let me see. I don't see any other questions. And peace to Smash. And
Smash on that.
I don't know if he's still on, but I'm kind of scrolling up on a chat commentary.
That's
so peace to Tone 360. And
oh, you heard his song Harkuf, right?
We appreciate it. Yeah, I've been. Look, I'll pop into shows every now and then. So if it's not playing, but this is me right now.
You all in there. I wonder if
I'm pretty sure.
Window fixed.
You know, they look. You know, I see what he don't know is that I MC, and I put down my MC hat to do this scholarship stuff. But if I have to go back,
well, you need to
start making records.
Yeah, make it every now and then. I know you're into the music.
You know.
Yeah.
But and I gotta tell folks, so you know, there's a situation happening with my website. So so the company that I initially got my asarimhotep website under,
they shut down.
It was not necessarily shut down, they were bought out by GoDaddy. And my domain expired. And so I'm in the process of trying to get my domain back, but it's hard proving who I am to a company that I didn't register the domain with. You get what I'm saying? So like in the meantime, instead of going to asarimhotep.com, you know, you can go to asarimhotep. So it points still to my old because I had my domain with mediatemple.com. So I had this for like 16, 17 years. Right. And so, but when I upgraded my site and I added my other sites, I did it with another company. So I still have everything with HostGator, my central company that I have all my other websites on, but I still had a SAR from the old site pointing to the new server. So I still have all my things on HostGator, but the other was pointing there. But now, since that situation, so I just went through HostGator and purchased asarimhotep.com, which is the correct pronunciation of Osar anyway.
Right.
But so that I can still conduct Osir, yes. So correct. Yeah. So when I had Asar, when I first started going by Asar in 2002, I got the word Asar from like, who was it? Like Muata Ashby, I believe. So that was like the pronunciation. That was one of the common pronunciations, at that time.
But
so
I thought that was
of course. It could be, but that's that particular pronunciation is where I got it from Muata Ashby, right? Because Imhotep is my line name from when I pledged Alpha in undergrad, and so I added the Asar to it, and so I've been going with Asar, but over the years, as I started dealing with the etymology of Osir, I've come to understand and respect this particular pronunciation. Matter of fact, it's still pronounced that way amongst the Luo in Uganda, in Sudan, and in Kenya, I should say. It's Osir.
That's too close to the Greek.
But it's not the Greek. The Greek were pronouncing it like the Egyptians. That's the point. So the only thing that they added was their suffix. So it's just like when we say Kemetic, right? If Kimet is the word, the Egyptian word, but because we speak English and we want to refer to that which is of Egypt, in English we would say Kemetic. So since they had masculine and feminine words, their masculine suffix is is. So it becomes Osiris.
Gotcha.
So that's how it happens. So when you say Osiris, you're not, technically you're pronouncing it in a Greek way, but the root is Egyptian. That's how they pronounced it. I still like
Usir or Wasir.
As I discussed in the upcoming text, citing like James P. Allen and others, they're arguing that it is pronounced like Aset and Asar are pronounced similarly, like they're pronounced the same, at least in the Old Kingdom. And so that's up there then.
Yeah, I like.
Well, I would if the collagen for that root, it is us, like uset, us. It's usat yat and usat ya. That's how they pronounce it in just a regular word, because it's the same word for woman, wife, and in Egyptian, but their pronunciation is Asis for Isis. Is Asis.
Greek. Or Koine.
But with Asase, like, because the same root is in the Akan, Asasiya or Asase, but in Isis in amongst the Akan is Asaseya. And so it's just the Asase is Sa reduplicated. And so that's more than likely the same thing with the collagen, that Asis, the S is reduplicated. But they tend not to have vowels at the end of words. So that's why it's a long E. So it's instead of asisi, it's asis, because you know the rules in their language is, you know, no vowels at the end of words.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Whereas a Khan, you know, they don't, their word structure, even though they have cognates with collagen, their word structure allows for vowels at the end of words.
Gotcha.
But I'm finna wrap up here because I got some machine learning and some assignments that I got to do.
Got some assembly language?
I'm sorry?
So you got some assembly language to learn?
No, this is machine learning. So it's basically statistics, neural networks, and what should I say? Yeah, it's nothing but math and statistics. There's some programming, but not in a traditional sense. It's more so using the R programming, because R is the statistical program that statisticians use. It's an open source. So as far as that is concerned, but no, this is math. This is it's no real programming.
I got my C in statistics and bounced.
And but what I love about this is that it's given me ideas on how to quantify and to create formulas, statistical formulas for historical comparative linguistic analysis. And I'm going to have to sit down with some linguists who are also computer scientists, and to see, because that's one thing that I've been working towards is how can we, because there's already computational linguistics, but there's not much, if anything, on computational linguistics for historical comparative linguistics. You know, more so in synchronic, because we're trying to reduplicate language on computer systems, right? And that's a different process in itself. But now, you know, we're trying to program it to recognize, you know, and so this is where this is going to become important. So when I'm creating databases and we're trying to predict cognates in a data set that has not been, you know, what we call supervised. So there's supervised learning and unsupervised learning. So this is the stuff that you learn when you're dealing with artificial intelligence, right? So if you build a system, a large language learning model on some supervised data,
right?
And then you're training it to be able to complete certain tasks and to recognize certain things. So now that you can use it on untrained data. So so you know, you're able to ask a question and it's able to, based off of a particular type of logic, you know, be able to answer certain questions. So this is how they're able to, you know, use it on chat platforms, or even like when you're on your text on your phone and you put in a couple words, so it's trying to anticipate what you're going to say next. So it brings up some suggestions, you know, based on some data that it was trained on human languages. Let's say English, for example. So if you say this, you know, more than likely you're going to say this. So we'll suggest this, right? Like that's all what this stuff is. This is for artificial intelligence training.
Or the repetition, when it sees you keep doing the same thing, so it gives you the same.
So it's learning your habits. So so you know, it can. So this is, matter of fact, is this type of machine. So that's what machine learning is. So this is the kind of learning that when you go on Netflix and you're viewing a certain type of, you know, movies and the like, so it is able to learn your patterns, and from there to make some suggestions for you to possibly watch, you know, and, you know, depending on the genre and the like. And so it's the same thing that for your timeline on Facebook or on YouTube or on TikTok, right? It's learning, the machine is learning your habits, so that it can train itself and it can curate an experience based upon your history, right? So, but all of that is underlying all of that is statistics,
right. Some type of algorithm.
Exactly.
Statistical algorithm.
But so with that said, I do appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate everyone for joining. You know, if you have any questions or the like, put it in the comment section, and you know, hopefully I will see it and I can answer it there. Or you can hit me up on asarimhotep.com until I get, you know, the other situation straight. And so, and if you have my email address at info@asarimhotep.com, it's not going to work. So you have to email me now at info@asarimhotep.com. So so this is the new email address, info@asarimhotep.com.
Have you put that on your YouTube site yet?
Not yet. Like I'm just like, all of this happened over the weekend, and so and there were some other issues that I had once I bought the domain. So I'm now, you know, just getting to it, and so it's a whole
Gotcha.
It forced me to do a whole bunch of
how much is
different things.
Domain? How much is to purchase a domain these days? $25?
Well, technically, you don't purchase it like in terms of you forever keep it. So there's a charge per year. So if you was just to buy it on your own, it's now it's close to $100. And I'm like, I'm not paying that per year. But if you go through a company like a GoDaddy or HostGator.com or something like that, then they buy the domains at bulk,
right?
And so they can bring it to you cheaper. So I only pay like $13. So, for this domain, I'll just be paying $13 a year.
Yeah,
you know, because it's part of the hosting package that I have.
They give you a lot of
that
different
I pay monthly. I'm sorry.
Do they give you a lot of different resources to go with, or is it just strictly?
Yeah. No, well, the domain is you know, one service, and then the hosting is another. So you know, there's a lot of features that come with the hosting itself, and and hopefully I get big enough to where I have to buy my own server, and that's why I want to get. So
I'm
surprised I can do more. You know, like I can. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm surprised you haven't had your own server yet.
Well, I did before, but the problem is that like I don't own like an office space. You know, I work from the home, and so you need a business broadband. And like if you live in an apartment or something like that, usually they have some kind of deal with the cable company or something like this, and so you can't get a business account in an apartment space. And so then that on top of that, you know, there's a large energy bill that comes with having your own servers. So you don't want to have that simply attached to your house, right? So I would want to have that in like either some kind of warehouse or in an office space where, you know, of course I can discount that energy, you know, from a business standpoint, from an LLC standpoint, like that's part of my cost, my business costs that I could write off. And, you know, but I can't write off my electricity for my apartment if I live in an apartment or a house, you know, because even with a house, it's only, you know, for tax purposes, you can designate a certain room as office space, and you can discount certain taxes for there. But you know, it's not the same as you can do the whole thing if like you have some office space somewhere, and all of that is just business expense, like the whole thing, including electricity and the like. So, but so yeah, that's what's keeping me.
Okay.
Otherwise, because I have my own YouTube, my own all that. It's just a space, and it's a lot of money. So like I would have to have a lot of cash flow to kind of deal with that, because it's a lot. Because you're gonna have to hire some folks to come in and maintain. Because
you start out small.
I'm sorry. Of course, you start out small, but even still, that small, it's still going to cost you. You know, like I would have to partner up with somebody, because it's like I'm the programmer and the like, and I know a little bit about cybersecurity, but I'm definitely like, when you hosting your own server, you're going to have to be up on it, because there's now they got bots that people just create just to hack into systems, right? And you got to be vigilant and always on that. And so with me doing I can't be doing that and scholarship and trying to beat up folks on YouTube. Like, I gotta learn how to delegate and just pay some folks, and they don't come cheap.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, because that's what I do. I maintain servers for the state of South Carolina. But I mean, like you said, there's layers to it. You got the people that filters, that manage the firewall.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I appreciate you coming through, and I appreciate you all for listening. And until next time.
Tokyo wanna those that. What's up? Feeling like I dropped the draw for in part uno. Came to kick the door with the game man judo. Pin game low, that's why they give me kudos. Inspired by the 3-0. 595, check it for pack light. Hit the turnpike, slide to a baseline. Gotta sound like I just hit the 8-5. Oh, I'm so ready, by enemies necessary. We gon' be legendary, hold up. About to grow the payrolls. If you see the vision and you're with it, you should say so. Cause we about building, elevating the millions.
This program was created with the love and support of all our Patreon members and subscribers. If you are not a member yet and would like to see more content like this, consider becoming a member today. The link is in the description of this video. Your support is greatly appreciated.